Hello, everyone. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products for phoenixNAP, and with me is Anthony Haraguchi, Customer Success Engineer at Kentik. Today, we're going to talk about network automation for a cloud-native infrastructure. And we're going to jump right into the webinar with a quick poll question, just so that I can get everyone's feedback on where they're coming from and try to put the presentation in a kind of something that makes sense to everybody on the call or as many people as possible. So I'm going to throw this poll up here. If you could tell me a little bit about the industry vertical that you're working in, and I'll let some answers kind of flow in here. All right. Interesting. Okay, so we have a pretty solidly spread out crowd today, about a third SaaS, half business e-commerce, and it's kind of trending towards thirds of sorts here with finance and healthcare. And thank you everyone for participating. Like I said, hopefully that'll allow us to get a little bit more targeted today. Although the presentation today is not vertically specific, hopefully we can put some things out there and give you a little tidbits that make sense for your organization. So I'm going to close down that poll real quick, and then I'm going to throw a second one up. And a little bit about company size. So if you could just kind of let us know size of organization. This might help a little bit more as we talk about network infrastructure and automation. Hopefully we can kind of guide that towards the size of the attendees. Okay, so we had about 50% of the people voted, a little bit more. Okay, dominated by small business. So today, mostly small business. That's just fine. If anybody sneaks in or has an answer that is in a large organization, we're going to talk a little bit about internet level considerations and kind of WAN level considerations. So that should be just fine for everybody. But I'll try to add a couple tidbits in there about smaller network environments, and small employees doesn't always mean small network, right? We have a lot of customers out there that are in the content delivery space and things like that have large networks with a low number of employees. So I'll try to keep that in mind as we move through. So today we're going to try to give our insight into how network automation and network insight is changing in a cloud native world, right? As folks are looking to transition their applications to a infrastructure and framework oriented infrastructure design where they can programmatically create compute, storage, and network, it's important that you start to understand, how you can accomplish some of these activities, and how you can bring your organization into the future and start delivering kind of on the promise of multi-cloud, on the promise of network insight and network instrumentation, and really kind of get, whether it's your CCA tool or your kind of playbook automation, you can work networking into the automation that you're doing every day for systems, and hopefully that will get everyone on the call to the next level. So what we see today is this massive transition towards cloud native infrastructure and programmable infrastructure. The reason for that is because organizations, as they have looked to adopt the public cloud, have been forced to try to understand the public cloud networking constructs and constraints, which sometimes are great for an organization to be more dynamic and programmable. They can provide major security upgrades. They can provide a lot of time to deployment upgrades, but they can be rigorous sometimes and require a lot of deep insight on a per cloud basis, i.e. proprietary configurations for specific clouds. And so what we're hoping to do as an organization is try to provide as many standards-based approach to that as possible. And we're working with great partners to allow us to have insight into the network worldwide and make sure that our delivery of network infrastructure, both at a product level and at a WAN level, which is kind of a more requisite or prerequisite for all of our product sets and as an infrastructure as a service company. I'm gonna allow my friends from Kentik here in a little bit to show you a lot of that insight that they're able to deliver to us. And I'll talk a little bit later about how we're working on delivering that insight to our customers and folks of specific products, and hopefully long-term, all of our products, but of specific products and how we're working to stitch that in. What we understand is that, Gartner says by 2022, we're going to see containers dominating the application landscape. And the impact from a network perspective means basically that almost all network traffic visibility is going to be somewhat disrupted. Traditional tool sets are going to be disrupted because the majority of the application communication is happening over containerized and or encapsulated network automation and network packet delivery. So what we're here to say, though, is that as you look at adopting cloud infrastructure, if you're choosing the right infrastructure providers and the right partners of those providers, you will be able to continue to maintain that insight that you have today with your traditional networking tools as you reach into the cloud and beyond. So the high-level summary as we look at this with kind of a little specific tidbit at the bottom about cloud-native infrastructure, right? You're looking at programmable, API-driven, integration and automation oriented, right? So this term infrastructure as code is becoming very popular. And the ability to kind of automate everything, the network, the storage, the compute, the application, and the delivery of the code to these infrastructure and infrastructure subsystems is what makes for cloud native technology. There's a ton, at least from an infrastructure perspective, there's a ton past that, right? There's a lot that goes into the microservices constructs and making sure that you've partitioned your application out correctly and you've created various types of high availability. But as you look at cloud native infrastructure, this is kind of our view of what that looks like today. And so what are we doing about it, right? Today, and a few days ago, we announced the closed beta of our bare metal cloud offering. And what we've done over the last 12 to 15 months is we have begun to realize the delivery of physical infrastructure in a completely automated basis, delivering dedicated hardware resources to our customers in an hourly consumption model, delivered as fast as you can get a VM from a major public cloud. You get the power of bare metal infrastructure. And we've integrated this platform with 3 of the largest CCA tools out there, the Ansible guys at Red Hat, Terraform and HashiCorp, and an upstart called Pulumi that actually allows for the deployment of infrastructure via code, right? So not through a YAML configuration or something like that if you're familiar with Terraform or Ansible, but actually through Java, Python, C, etc., with modules that you're able to import. You can deploy and requisition infrastructure for a period of time directly in the code itself, allowing developers to take control of that if that's the organization's choosing. And the goal here is to allow you to scale predictable and cost-effective infrastructure, leveraging the latest technologies available on the market. And for those of you that are familiar with phoenixNAP, you know that we are always pushing the boundaries of infrastructure adoption. And we are there every single step of the way with our partners at Intel and others, delivering the best, latest technologies on demand. The hope is that through a product like this, we can make those infrastructure capabilities available instantly, programmatically, and in a utility model that makes sense for the cloud native infrastructure world and for the organizations that are adopting that as the framework that they've chosen as an organization to follow. So again, the idea here, high level, is get dedicated infrastructure, bare metal infrastructure on demand, the same way that you would get a VM for a fraction of the cost of a lot of the virtual machines in the public cloud. Obviously, there are limits, right? It's a physical server. The lowest end instance, if you just need one micro instance from a major public cloud, that's going to come in more cost effective in the $20, $30 a month range, and then they even have some smaller kind of really low end instances. But once you start getting into production level instances, the amount of infrastructure that you can get in a platform like this for the dollar that you're spending in the same utility compute model that's available to you in a public cloud is massive. And the ability to have that hardware dedicated to your application and for you to be able to do basically whatever you want on top of it, including virtualize it if you want, gives you freedom and gives you predictability that you can't otherwise achieve in the public cloud today. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But what we're trying to do through the delivery of products like this is bring resource scalability, a level of openness, right? And an adoption platform for the latest cloud native infrastructure and application frameworks that exist on the market today. And as we build the product out over time, we are hoping that we can bring a lot of the technology that my friends at Kentik are going to talk about into the platform and give you deep insights into the network that are hard to get otherwise. And you've seen a little bit of this in the public cloud today. I think Anthony might talk a little bit about it as well, providing you kind of network infrastructure insight and network monitoring capabilities in the public cloud. We're working with Kentik to provide similar capabilities in products like Bare Metal Cloud and others so that we can get this visibility and insight in the hands of our customers. So stay tuned for some more of that. And last, I'm going to leave you with kind of some capabilities, some best practices that we've been able to implement so far in the platform today. You're truly getting network as a service, right? So every server that you get is plumbed, ready to go with networking infrastructure, right? In most regions, you're going to find 7+ carriers in our BGP mix. So you have a ton of resiliency, a ton of route capability. You're going to have all of your IP addressing and things like that automated and assigned for you. You're going to know and have assurance that when you deprovision and hand back infrastructure, that we are taking it through a multi-step process to isolate and securely erase that infrastructure. And then we're leveraging tools and partners like Kentik to give us visibility and power our extremely powerful DDoS protection capabilities and keep them in place for technologies like Bare Metal Cloud. And then hopefully over time, integrate with Kentik and others to provide insights into the network for the customers that have chosen to use Bare Metal Cloud as their production infrastructure so that they can get some of the power that we find and the visibility that we find that allows us to achieve high up times and high availability and back it with a service level that makes sense. So with that, I'm going to throw one more poll up. And it's going to talk a little bit about adoption of cloud native infrastructure. So when I just say yes if you're doing anything. If you're using Ansible, Terraform, if you're using any other CCA tool, if you have adopted a public cloud and you are creating infrastructure programmatically in any fashion, go ahead and indicate. Perfect. Come on, a few more folks. I know it's getting into the broadcast, so we can get some more in there. All right. So it looks like most people have started down the path, right? They're either there already or they're looking at how to get there. So I hope that what the guys at Kentik are going to show you is pretty cool. For the 44%, 50% or so that haven't even started down this route, there's going to be a lot of great technology in here that may be helpful for your infrastructure on-prem or your traditional infrastructure deployments. So it's going to be a nice live demo, so that you guys can ask questions. Please ask questions if you have any. Throw them in the questions area, and we'll start answering them during the demo if you have any. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Anthony, and he's going to take over.
Thanks, William. So I am Anthony Haraguchi. I am one of the customer success engineers over here at Kentik. And Kentik is a network analytics platform that is primarily a SaaS service. We are about 90 people strong at this point and have been around since 2014. And I've also had the pleasure of working with phoenixNAP for a while now, primarily around network forensics in their own infrastructure, as well as some alerting pieces where we can definitely track things such as DDoS, as well as help mitigate as well. So this is just a high-level overview of what Kentik is. As I mentioned, we are primarily a SaaS service. And what that means is that we have the ability to scale out our infrastructure as needed. And so as things like the ingest nodes need more horsepower, we can go ahead and scale those out. And as the storage nodes need more storage, we can go ahead and scale those out. And what that really means for the end user is that all of the scaling and development in terms of growing out the network analytics platform is all done by Kentik as part of the service. And that leaves people free to run whatever applications that they're interested in or run whatever network pieces that they're interested in. Now, as far as what we ingest into Kentik, we can definitely take in a number of different things. From routers, we're typically taking in things like NetFlow and SNMP, and we did start on the infrastructure side of things, and over time, as more people got into the cloud environments, we were getting a lot of requests from the folks that we were maintaining infrastructure for, asking what type of visibility we could provide in the cloud piece. And so we'll touch on that here in a second, but I believe it was about a little bit over a year ago, we added in the ability to take in both AWS flow logs as well as Google flow logs, as well as logs from Azure, combined with our metadata information as well, where folks can go ahead and add labels on any IP or port that's coming in to make them easier to understand. And all of that combined, we believe, gives people a good picture of what's going on in their multi-cloud environments, as well as what's going on in their infrastructure. Other pieces that are included as part of the Kentik service are some geolocation information where we can track IP addresses back to different regions, countries, and cities. And there is also a threat feed that comes in where we can identify command and control centers based on IP address, and also break that down by bot, and then let people know if there's any of the infrastructure that they're interested in that has recently talked to one of these command and control centers that would require further analysis. Now,
hey, Anthony, just we had one from the crowd. Looks like your screen's slightly cut off. So if you could look at your screen, it's kind of cut off partially on the display. I'm not sure what's causing that, but let's see if we can, yeah, it looks like with the full screen, it kind of cut it off to the side there. There you go. That's fine. I'm sure everybody can deal with the thing. Thank you.
Thanks for calling that out. Now, the piece I was about to add in here was, in addition to ingesting all of this, what you'll see in a second is that the information we present in the portal is highly queryable. It really was designed to return information quickly so that folks could really start their queries up high and then drill into things until they get the answers they were looking for. Any query we have can also be built into a dashboard so that folks don't have to run the queries from scratch every time they come into the portal. And the other thing that we've built in here is an alerting engine. And that alerting engine is looking for either static thresholds where we can say if a particular IP address takes more than 5,000 packets of ICMP traffic, then go ahead and send out an alert. And there's also a way that we can do this based on static and baselines, meaning that if an IP address received more than 5,000 packets of ICMP traffic and was above 140% of its normal baseline, then go ahead and alert me. And the ways that we're typically sending out these alerts are via Slack, PagerDuty, email, syslog, and JSON webhook. And the JSON webhook piece is becoming increasingly popular because folks have figured out ways to use that to trigger off automated processes. And a lot of the administrative pieces, such as adding in friendly labels so that they match on things like IPs and ports to make them easier to understand, all of that can be done via our API. So having all that said, let's go ahead and dive into the portal. And this is typically where folks are landing these days. This is our Network Explorer. And the minute people jump in here, immediately they're presented with some good information about their network. We're looking over one of our demo environments right now, but just at first glance, we get an idea of how much traffic is on the network, as well as what some of the traffic look like based on some of the cloud information that we've received or some of the infrastructure information that we've received. And then that immediately breaks down into different applications, top talking interfaces, top talking IP addresses. All of these are pre-ran as folks are coming into the portal. And so the nice thing there is that there's a lot of good information that people can grab from the landing page and not necessarily have to run a query immediately in order to get to some of the information they may be interested in. Now, of course, one of the things that we ingest is flow. And we're relatively flow agnostic. We'll take all kinds of different flow. But I think part of the struggle that folks have had with flow over time is that it will provide your basic information, such as source IP, dest IP, source port, dest port, and along with the associated traffic levels. But the struggle with that is that if I see this list of IP addresses, maybe I know what they are, maybe I don't know what they are. But the nice thing here is that I have the ability to add in a friendly label And if I go ahead and put something like this together, where now I've marked the services based on IP and port, now this becomes much more useful to me and much easier to understand. And we can really start tracking things down to the service level. And as we started getting more and more into cloud environments, this type of question came up all the time, where folks didn't want to just get the IP information out of the reports they were looking at. What they really wanted was to be able to map in additional pieces, such as the service name, VM name, even the zone type information. And so one way we address that is the ability to add in the metadata pieces. And then the other piece we added in was the ability to ingest things like AWS flow logs. And of course, that gave us much more than just your standard IP and port type pieces, where now we have the zone information. We actually have some port information along with the VM information, and we can start putting those together into some of the reporting so folks can figure out exactly what is talking to what within the cloud environment, and if there are portions of the cloud environment that are talking to a legacy data center environment, and we can track the traffic going back and forth over those links as well, and marry that in with the context that we get from both sides, where we have the VM name or even the application piece from the cloud side of things, we can then marry that into what it's talking to in the data center side of things as well. Both sides can have those friendly labels, and it makes things much easier to understand at that point. The other piece that we have been working on is there's this concept of a main Kentik instance, and then we also developed a white label portal. This is one that we have built for just a demo account that we call Acme. But the idea here is that if you have one instance of Kentik, and then you wanted to give your customers visibility only into their traffic, we have the ability to allow folks to get into another piece of Kentik, and then based on the login, they'll only be able to access their own information, as well as only be able to access read-only reports that allow some interaction, as well as some alerts. So the nice thing there is that as folks start working with this more and more, they can actually do some analysis on what some of their traffic may look like, whether that was in a cloud environment or maybe even in an infrastructure environment. They've got the ability to choose different type of reports that they may have here, and then start to do their own analysis. And this also carries into the alerting functionality that we have as well, where each login can have access to their own set of alerts. And if something interesting happens, where, say, in this case, an ICMP attack came in, we have the ability to then send a notification to, in this case, whoever the SecOps folks are for Pair Inc. And then they have the ability to then go into Kentik. They can see where everything, where the alert fired here. And then if they wanted to go ahead and dig into things, they're free to then open things up in a dashboard. And within the dashboard, we will only pass along the parameters that actually triggered the attack. And then within seconds, they can take a look at this and see that the source country in this case was Russia. And if there's cases where folks aren't expecting a lot of traffic from Russia and all of a sudden it spikes, that could be one of the clues that this is DDoS traffic coming in. We also break down how this came into the network all the way down to the interface level. And we also apply the dest IP and give folks an idea of what protocol is involved here. We've only looked at this for less than a minute at this point, and we are already probably starting to lean towards this looking like DDoS that we want to filter. And as we dig into this even more, we can see that ordinarily we don't take that much ICMP traffic to this particular IP address, and then all of a sudden it spikes. So the whole idea here is to give people content that they can easily understand that's only reflective of their own information, and then they can either understand what's going on in their pieces of the network or be alerted when something interesting happens so they can take the appropriate action. The last piece I have here is just a quick blurb on the Kentik site. If what we've shown here was interesting to folks, there's definitely ways that you can go to the main Kentik site and click on the demo button if you'd like somebody to give you a more in-depth demo. And we also encourage people to look at this with their own data if that's appropriate. And if folks wanted to, you could simply click on the trial button, and that will automatically default you into a 30-day Kentik evaluation where you can send in some of your data and look at things with your own information. So I think that's everything I had for folks today. Unless we have any questions here, it's back to you, William.
All right, thank you very much, Anthony. And there were a couple questions I answered in the background while you were chit-chatting. And if anybody had anything else, pnap or Kentik otherwise, just toss them into the questions area, and I'll be sure to get them during the Q&A. All right, so for those of you that don't know about phoenixNAP, you got here via, a marketing or a post on LinkedIn or whatnot. We've been in business for the last 10, almost 11 years, building great infrastructure services. And the majority of our time, the things that we're known for today, and the infrastructure that we've delivered around the globe, it was built for the enterprise and medium enterprise of today. It was built for the workloads that are happening still majority on-prem, in co-location, and it's a very important part of our portfolio. Things like backup, disaster recovery, co-location, network services, very, very important, still very valid deployment models for infrastructure. I think a key component of the long-term solution, which does look very multi-cloud and hybrid, but the world is changing. And it's important that as our customers change, as the industry changes, that we are building and recognizing this and building new solutions that allow our customers to get the things that they find valuable in phoenixNAP. For the customers on the webinar today, you guys know why you chose pnap for one service or another. And what we're trying to do is take that same persona, the person that you chose to do business with, and bring that into the modern infrastructure and application landscape. And we believe that bare metal cloud is the first step in recognizing that for our customers. And so today, the infrastructure that we've deployed is all over the world. And many of you may not know this, right? If you've chosen to do business with us in one region for one product, you may not know that all of these other capabilities exist. Our closed beta for bare metal cloud is happening in Phoenix today. phoenixNAP.com. There's a place on the top menu for bare metal cloud. You can click there. You can apply for the closed beta if that's of interest to you. As Anthony mentioned, you can go to Kentik.com, see the technology that they've built there, and if there's something that's intriguing for you there, please reach out to them. They've got an amazing product, and we've been a long-term customer. I think probably almost 4 or 5 years now. So I think that all that should be said. The bare metal cloud product will go into GA and open for availability for anyone that wants to leverage it sometime in the July-August timeframe. We'll have Ashburn, Virginia at that point for that product. And then very quickly, Amsterdam, Singapore behind that. And then what you'll notice is kind of an explosion of locations. The plan calls for a lot of locations very quickly. And we may not have every instance type that we've built in every location. We may have to make adjustments to price points for various regional things, the same as you see in public cloud today. But the overall driving force of this is we are going to bring predictability, cost effectiveness, value, and an actual honest to goodness SLA to the infrastructure and the programmable infrastructure space, right? And I think that for a lot of folks, it's going to provide a very refreshing view on cloud infrastructure that they couldn't find in the public cloud. I'm sure many of you on the call have tried to leverage public cloud resources in one way or the other. We find that a lot of our customers have done it. They've either made a transition or a partial transition. They've made attempts at a transition and come back. We don't believe that the utility compute model is broken. What we believe is that the utility compute model that exists today is not infrastructure as a service. It's actually platform as a service. And platform as a service means lock-in and rigidity. And if you need an entire platform of services to take advantage of, if you're building your first application and you don't want to have anyone to do anything but write code for your app, that makes a ton of sense. If you've built and scaled out an application before and you have these resources around and you've built very unique solutions, sometimes infrastructure specific solutions that take advantage of specific types of infrastructure, it is very difficult to leverage those things in the public cloud today. And I'm not talking about just AWS, I'm talking about the grander landscape as everyone knows it. So it's a lot of kind of key take homes there. I'm going to throw up our last poll question of the day. And this is just going to give us some level of interest in kind of both Kentik and phoenixNAP. So if you want either or, you can indicate yes, then we'll have somebody reach out to you. But you know, are you looking at interested in learning more about bare metal cloud? And if so, we'll have someone contact you directly. Again, it is in private beta today. We are being somewhat selective about the participants. And you know, we may have to ask you some more questions about your environment and your workload and things like that. But we're open to having those conversations. It is not limited to phoenixNAP customers today. It is a standalone service, so that should be known. We are, for those of you that are phoenixNAP customers, we are working diligently over the next few quarters to find intelligent ways to interconnect and marry the products and services that you're consuming today with the bare metal cloud product. So, all right, with that, I will go ahead and shut down that poll question. All right. And we will move into Q&A. And I will start with one I had for Anthony. Anthony, you know, at Kentik, your customers, can you talk about maybe the top 1 or 2 challenges that people approach Kentik about and why you're so successful in helping them solve those challenges?
Sure, William. I mean, I think these days that the most common problem that we're asked to solve is it's the whole cloud to infrastructure communication piece, where folks are really trying to figure out what are all these things that are talking into the data center and vice versa. So it's a big game of making the data center side understood, where we are using a combination of SNMP and flow along with the metadata to identify things like certain pods or certain racks. And then we go ahead and combine that with the information that we can get out of the cloud environments, whether that's through additional metadata that's added in or via any type of log that we can get from the cloud side of things, so we can correctly identify it's really this VM and this zone, possibly even this project that is talking to this pod in the data center. And that I've even worked on some projects where we've even broken this down to the application level, including the team that supports it, so that when folks run the reports, they get an idea of the traffic levels, the application, as well as the team that actually supports it. Once we've done that, then it's just a game of setting up the appropriate reporting that they'd like to have in their dashboards and their alerts. And from there, since we do have the API available, once everything is stood up, it's super easy to maintain everything, and things just kind of, for the most part, on autopilot from there on out.
We had a question from the audience about the bare metal cloud product, and whether they could interconnect it with the products that they're consuming today. Like I said, we are working diligently to try to make that a reality. The key for us is to do that securely, right? We want to make sure that if we provide cross connects from Colo or our virtual private cloud services or data security cloud to a product like this, that we are able to do that securely and cost effectively, and really just a high level of assurance around the performance and the capabilities. One thing I didn't talk about that is interesting to note as well is performance is a very important part of the work that we're doing in bare metal cloud today, and as we prep for launch. So you're going to see things that are industry leading for sure, but also for phoenixNAP are major advancements. So I'll give you one today. We're not going to be offering any instances with less than NVMe storage, right? So every instance we have will be NVMe based, and still focusing on cost, still focusing on that. The latest generation of Intel Xeon processors, both the single proc codenamed Cascade Lake refresh processor and the dual proc Intel Xeon Scalable second generation refresh processors in multiple different flavors. So we'll have instances for all of that. And then 20 gigs of network infrastructure per server for the single proc instances, and dual 25 making 50 gigs of network infrastructure for each dual socket instance. So adopting the platform can be great for new projects that may be more big data oriented, maybe more AI and ML, especially as we announce GPU instances in the future. So that's really kind of where we're taking the platform today. And the reason that we got Kentik here is that we believe in visibility and we believe in quality. And Kentik today allows us to maintain a high level of quality and a high level of visibility into the network infrastructure. And our hope is that as we progress with this platform and others, that we're able to take that visibility and bring it into the platform so that our customers can not only expect and have a high level of assurance that they're going to get the service level that they have purchased, but also they can validate and see the reality of what's going on. So that's something we're working on for the future as well. All right, any more questions? All right, I don't see any more questions. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank you, Anthony, for joining us from Kentik. I hope that everyone stays safe and healthy, and I look forward to talking to you on our next webinar. Have a great day.